journals. There are many reasons why the entry of South Asians in the literary arts is sporadic. First, we need to recognize that marginality is one of the problems that writers deal with in the US because of the history of racism and sexism. Seen against the backdrop of the civil rights and feminist movements in this country, the battles are continually being fought by women and people of color to be visible to the editors of magazines. The invisibility of the historically marginalized is part of the history of literary production in the US. Today we have more women and people of color who are finally seen as part of American literature, but their battles are not over. Hence the establishment of VIDA, Women in the Literary Arts, a collective that examines every top magazine, counts the number of women and the number of women of color who are being published in them. The VIDA counts are sent to the top magazines so the editors can evaluate their editorial decisions. The motivation for VIDA count is to show that women can and need to advocate for themselves rather than wait for things to change, because things ain't gonna change until we push for change. So South Asian poets, along with the poets of other ethnicities, are part of this battle. The question is, should we be lumped with women of color, or should we be setting up our own count and sending our count to magazines to assess how many South Asians are being published? People who disagree with the idea behind such a count argue that selection in magazines should be based on merit and not the poet's race. This is a tired argument, since we know from the history that such an ideal, though laudable, criterion is not the reality. VIDA reports, quote, "While meritocracy is ideal, it is naive to accept the publishing industry on the premise that editors simply select the best writing from all that is submitted, especially when many of the major publications consult their Rolodexes and solicit most of their work. Editors and publishers alike have vested interests in the work they perpetuate, especially where a dollar is turned. Their values may be, shall we say, often strongly influenced by the demographic who can buy them." So for every one South Asian poet that is published in the New Yorker or Poetry magazine, there are probably 100 poets out there who are writing equally good or better poems that deserve to be included within these prestigious covers. But South Asian writers will never make it unless we have a lot of PR done to promote these writers. What kind of PR? Poetry festivals such as this one, Madhwala, periodic conferences, online presence of conferences and blogs, letters to conference directors such as AWP to include South Asian poets, inviting younger writers to review their fellow South Asian poets, publishing essays periodically on South Asian poets. The American public is hardly educated on the history of South Asian literature, its breadth and richness, that it consists of 200 or more traditions, the history of translations into other world languages, the present versioning of younger writers, and so on. So it is up to us to begin a movement to create the awareness of this vibrant literature. I teach South Asian literature in my college especially, and occasionally give talks on South Asian poets at the local library, invite South Asian poets to my campus to give readings and workshops, write about South Asian poetry for major literary magazines, give readings widely, network with a wide array of poets, some of whom are editors of magazines, get into the editorial board of magazines. But I realize that all of this is on the local level. It is very hard to break into the higher tier, which is an old boys or old girls network that has kept its doors firmly locked. So this is where the PR I mentioned about matters. So we need, so if you think about it realistically, you would need a staff of a few people who are really vested in this kind of thing, and basically sit and do a count of all the different magazines and how many people of South Asian origin are being published in those magazines. In fact, we can also contact VIDA, Women in the Literary Arts, to find out more details on how they undertake the count and ask for sample letters that they have sent to magazine editors. While the VIDA count is mainly a count of women in poetry magazines in the US, their latest edition being Women of Color Poets, we can do a count of South Asian poets, male and female, in poetry magazines published in the US, plus provide separate statistics of male and female poets. I hope this festival can be a beginning to advocate for more visibility of South Asian poets in the US. Thank you.